Travis McCall had never heard of Whispering Pines before the day he closed on the house. It was a modest two-story fixer-upper nestled in a tight little neighborhood on the edge of town, the kind of place where mailboxes matched, and garbage cans disappeared like clockwork every Thursday. To Travis, it looked quiet, peaceful, just what he needed after years of late shifts in a noisy repair shop and the never-ending grind of city life. But on the third day after moving in, Peace walked out the front door, and Karen Millstone walked right in. She didn't knock, she didn't call. She stood on Travis's driveway with a clipboard, sunglasses, and the look of someone who hadn't smiled at another human being since 2012. "I'm the HOA board president," she said, before he could finish unpacking his socket wrenches, "and I've already documented 3 violations on your property. 4, if we're counting the beast." Travis blinked. Beast. Karen pointed with her pen. Duke, his massive but harmless old bloodhound, had just rolled over on the lawn, tongue hanging out, looking about as threatening as a sack of potatoes. "Off, that's 1. Travis gave a slow nod, trying not to let the irritation creep into his voice. "You said 3 violations. What else?" She walked him around like a disappointed secretary. "Oil stain on the driveway, garage door open too, long a wind chime that, apparently, wasn't pre-approved. It's all in the community manual," Karen said, tapping the clipboard like it held the Constitution. "You'll want to get up to speed. We take pride here." Travis didn't argue. Not yet. He smiled, nodded, promised to take care of everything. But the second she walked off, Duke trotting behind her like she owed him treats, Travis knew something was off. That night, Travis got a visit from Mrs. Gutierrez, the elderly woman who lived across the street. She brought over a pie, 2 paper plates, and a piece of advice. "You're not the first one Karen's tried to bury," she whispered, peeking over her shoulder. "Just don't let her get into your business too deep. She's got her fingers in everything." Travis laughed it off. He figured most neighborhoods had their nosy types. But what he didn't know was that Karen wasn't just nosy, she was petty, persistent, and playing a game with rules only she understood. By the end of the week, Travis had already fixed the oil spot, coiled his hose, and brought Duke inside, more often than he liked. Still, 2 more notices showed up in his mailbox. This time, unauthorized work being done in the garage, even though it was just him changing his own brake pads. Then, on Monday morning, Travis walked outside to find his truck missing, gone, vanished from the street. He called the police. They told him it had been towed, per HOA request. Karen strolled by that afternoon, sipping from a beige travel mug. Next time, read the bylaws. No overnight street parking. That was the moment Travis stopped smiling. He started checking the security cameras he'd set up around his property during his first week. One of them, a low-angle cam, aimed at the driveway, caught a shadow moving along his side fence the night before. Not a car, not a person walking by. It looked like someone dragging something heavy, something leaking. The next morning, the corner of his yard smelled wrong. A mix of burnt plastic and engine sludge. Duke barked at the spot and refused to go near it. Travis crouched beside the soil. Dark patches stained the grass. A sticky, greasy mess had soaked down beneath the roots. He touched it, smelled it. That wasn't from his garage. And then something clicked in the back of his mind. Karen had blamed him for everything. But now, something nasty had appeared on his land, and someone wanted it to look like his fault. He didn't say a word. He packed a soil sample into a bag, sealed it up, and labeled it anonymously. Then, he made a quiet call to the county environmental office. Just a concerned citizen, just asking a question. Before he hung up, the woman on the other end said one thing that made the hair on his arms rise. "If that's what you think it is, sir, someone's in serious trouble." By Tuesday morning, Travis wasn't sipping coffee. He was standing in a line at the impound lot, looking at his old Dodge Ram behind a rusted chain-link fence. Dalton Recovery, the sign read, and something about that name stuck with him like a burr under his boot. When the guy at the window slid open the glass, Travis kept it cool. "This truck was towed from my street in Whispering Pines. I wasn't ticketed. No warning, nothing." The clerk looked half asleep. "HOA requisition, board order, all paperwork's on file." Travis leaned in. "You ever hear of a woman named Karen Millstone?" The clerk blinked. "That's Rick's ex." Travis froze. "Rick?" The guy thumbed toward the garage. "Rick Dalton? He owns the lot." And there it was. Travis stared through the fence at his truck. The way it had been dragged in. Bumper scuffed. Front tire flat. "So let me guess. Karen calls it a violation, and Rick gets paid to haul off the car." "No comment," the clerk muttered, already reaching for a new form. Travis paid the impound fee. It wasn't cheap, but the anger boiling in his chest cost a lot more. That night, he started checking deeper. Whispering Pines had a neighborhood Facebook group, mostly filled with pictures of gardens and people asking if anyone saw their lost cat. But 3 posts caught his attention, each one describing a car being towed without warning for minor violations. Different streets, same towing company. Dalton Recovery. He drove home in silence, Duke hanging his head out the window like nothing was wrong in the world. But as they pulled into the driveway, Duke started barking. Low, alert, Someone had been there. The camera feed confirmed it. A shadowy figure had walked along the side of the fence again. Same dragging motion. Same corner of the yard. And something dark had been poured into the grass. Travis rewound the clip. Paused. Zoomed. The figure wore a hoodie, but something about the way they moved looked familiar. It wasn't Karen, too tall, but there was a moment. Just one, where the camera caught a glimpse of a reflective patch on the back of the jacket. Dalton recovery. The next morning, Travis stepped into his garage with one purpose. To pull the full security footage from all three of his cameras. Every angle. Every clip. Even the one Mrs. Gutierrez had installed on her porch, which she gladly shared. Karen's been sniffing around since last fall, she said, peering over her glasses. I caught her photographing my rosebush like it owed her money. Together, they watched the footage. Travis, Mrs. Gutierrez, and Duke, who kept growling every time a certain tall figure walked past the fence. Then they caught something strange in one clip. The same person in the hoodie had walked back toward the HOA's tool shed behind Karen's property. No oil can empty hands. But minutes later, Karen came out of the shed holding a clipboard and wearing gloves. Now why would the HOA president need to handle oil-stained gloves if she's just writing violation notices? Mrs. Gutierrez said with a smirk. Travis didn't reply. He saved the footage to a secure drive, copied it, and added it to the envelope he'd started the day before. The soil sample had already been dropped off, anonymously at the county environmental office. But now, he was going to send the footage too. He didn't trust the HOA, and he sure didn't trust Karen Millstone. Later that day, Travis got a call from a blocked number. A calm, professional voice answered. Mr. McCall, this is Agent Lacey Rhodes, Environmental Protection Agency. You submitted a soil sample through county services. We ran a preliminary test. Travis didn't breathe. There's evidence of used motor oil degreasers and petroleum sludge in that soil. That runoff pattern isn't from passive leakage. Someone dumped it intentionally, and based on the coordinates, it's within 50 feet of a public storm drain. Travis blinked. That's bad, right? It's a federal violation. A long pause. Then she added, I'd like to come by, quietly, and I'd like to see the rest of what you have. Agent Lacey Rhodes didn't knock the traditional way. She tapped twice on Travis McCall's front door, stepped back exactly 6 feet, and waited with the kind of stillness that made people nervous. Her badge was clipped to a plain wind, her hair tied back, and the notepad in her hand looked like it had already claimed a dozen names that morning. Travis opened the door, Duke padding beside him with cautious curiosity. The moment Lacey introduced herself, Duke gave one sniff, then wandered off his version of approval. You're the one who submitted the sample, she said plainly, stepping inside as Travis waved her through, and I've reviewed the footage you sent this morning. He poured her a cup of coffee, but she waved it off. Let's get to the yard. Outside, Lacey crouched by the patch where the oily sludge still clung to the soil like rot. The grass had yellowed into a sickly strip, stretching right to the storm drain at the edge of his property. This runoff path, she murmured, tracing it with a pen, didn't originate here, it flowed here. Travis pointed toward the tool shed on Karen's lot. You thinking what I'm thinking? She didn't respond. Instead, she stood, clicked her pen, and scribbled something into her notepad. What's in that shed? Officially? Gardening tools. HOA supplies. But I've never seen a rake come out of there. Lacey paced. Her eyes scanned the fence line, the slight slope of the land, and the way the sludge had pooled in Travis's yard like someone meant it to be found there by the wrong person. This isn't just a violation, she said. It's contamination. And if it connects to a commercial business? Dalton Recovery? Travis cut in. The tow company Karen's ex runs. That's who took my truck. Lacey raised an eyebrow. That's a name I haven't heard in years. Rick Dalton's got priors for illegal disposal to states over. Travis folded his arms. Well, now he's got keys to a shed right behind Karen's fence. Lacey glanced over her shoulder, toward Karen's pristine lawn. It looked like something from a landscaping magazine. Fresh mulch, trimmed hedges, and not a single trace of oil. Too clean? I need inside that shed, she said. Travis shook his head. She keeps it locked. Claims it's HOA property. That's fine, Lacey said, flipping her badge shut. I'll be back tomorrow with a warrant. That night, Karen was out watering her flowers in a suspiciously cheerful mood. She gave Travis a wave like nothing had happened. Hope you figured out what killed your lawn. He didn't answer. He just smiled, returned the wave, and watched her return to her porch, where her phone buzzed non-stop the next morning. Things changed fast. 2 black SUVs rolled into the neighborhood just after 7 a.m. Lacey stepped out first, followed by 2 EPA field agents wearing gloves and boots. Karen stormed out of her front door in slippers and a robe. You can't just barge in like this. This is a private community. This is an environmental investigation, Lacey replied flatly. We have a warrant for inspection. Karen paled. Travis stood at the edge of his driveway, arms folded, watching the whole thing unfold. The agents pried open the shed while Karen paced and muttered behind them. From inside, they pulled 2 rusted metal barrels, one half filled with a thick black liquid, the other still leaking from a cracked seam. One of the agents pointed out an underground pipe that ran beneath the shed and pointed down slap directly toward Travis's yard. Karen's voice cracked. Those don't belong to me. Lacey held up the clipboard found inside the shed. Your name's all over the storage log. Weekly access. And you signed off 2 days ago. Karen's jaw tightened. This is some kind of setup. But Lacey wasn't listening anymore. She was already speaking into her radio. Down the street, Mrs. Gutierrez sat on her porch swing, recording every second with her tablet and a wide grin. Later, after the EPA trucks left with the barrels, and Karen had retreated inside with her lawyer on speed dial, Travis walked his yard again. The grass was still ruined. The smell hadn't gone away, but something in the air had shifted. He was no longer the one being watched. That evening, Travis received a short message on his phone. It was from Lacey. Preliminary fines estimated. This just got expensive. Karen Millstone thought muffins might smooth things over. By the time Agent Lacey Rhodes returned to Whispering Pines the next morning, Karen was already on her porch with a plate of lemon poppy seed pastries and a smile that looked more like a wince. I just thought you agents probably don't get many home-cooked treats, she chirped, balancing the tray with one hand and a copy of the HOA charter in the other. Lacey didn't even glance at the muffins. We're not here for brunch, ma'am. Behind her, 2 EPA inspectors walked toward the shed again, this time with ground-penetrating radar and a chemical detection kit. Karen's smile froze in place. I reviewed the contents of your HOA's maintenance log, Lacey said, her tone crisp. You personally logged shed access 8 times in the last 30 days. Karen scoffed, because I'm the one keeping the neighborhood clean. Unlike others, she nodded in Travis's direction as he crouched next to his garage, tinkering with Duke's water bowl. He didn't react. He didn't need to. The agents already had their sights locked in elsewhere, and those barrels. Lacey asked. Karen hesitated. I assumed they were part of our emergency fuel backup. For the HOA mowers, we had a drought last year. Lacey arched an eyebrow, then explained the storm drain channel we found under the shed. Or the used oil drums, no labels. No containment, no permits. Karen's gaze darted. I'm not the only one with keys. We checked the locks. Only 2 working keys in circulation, one with you, and one found at Dalton Recovery, registered to Rick Dalton. Karen's face went pale. The EPA team began digging shallow test pits near the slope. Within minutes, one agent called over. He held up a soil probe, soaked with black residue. More runoff. Fresh. Lacey looked back at Karen. This isn't a property dispute. It's environmental negligence. If this runoff made it to the storm system, we're looking at federal fines. Possibly criminal charges. Karen's lips trembled. That oil could have come from anywhere. Lacey gestured toward the evidence bags already filling with samples. These chemical traces? They're tied to a specific type of industrial degree. And guess what? Rick Dalton's tow company uses 2 flush engine blocks. Karen clutched the tray of muffins tighter. I didn't authorize anything illegal. Rick said he was helping me helping the HOA. Travis, now standing on his lawn, finally spoke. Help, is that what you call dumping oil behind a neighbor's fence and towing his truck for revenge? Karen's voice cracked. I didn't dump anything. This is being twisted. Lacey cut in. We've also received anonymous photos showing a hose from the shed connected to a barrel drain valve. Taken 2 nights before your last log entry. Karen's mouth opened, but no words came out. At that moment, a county van pulled into the cul-de-sac. A reporter stepped out with a cameraman, scanning the scene like a shark in warm water. Karen flinched, trying to wave them off. This isn't public. This is a misunderstanding. The reporter didn't seem to care. He nodded toward the EPA team and raised a mic. We've been told Whispering Pines HOA may be facing a federal cleanup investigation. Any comments, ma'am? Lacey calmly stepped between them. No statements will be made until our report is filed, and no further interference will be tolerated. Karen, visibly shaking now, turned and fled inside her home. Slamming the door behind her, the tray of muffins tipped sideways and crashed to the porch. From across the street, Mrs. Gutierrez rocked slowly on her porch swing, recording everything again, phone held steady. As the EPA began packing up their samples, Lacey approached Travis quietly. You were right to document everything, she said. This goes beyond homeowner harassment. This is deliberate environmental misconduct. The numbers aren't final yet, but this isn't going away quietly. What happens next? Travis asked. We finalize the soil reports, determine liability, and prepare the case for federal enforcement. Your neighbor Lacey gave a small nod toward Karen's house. She's about to get a letter she won't be able to ignore. Later that evening, a thick envelope was hand-delivered to Karen's door. She didn't answer it. But within minutes, the blinds in her front window snapped shut. Inside that envelope, preliminary notice of federal environmental violations, estimated damages, over $250,000, with fines, and possible criminal review. Travis didn't celebrate. Not yet, but Duke slept like a rock for the first time in a week. By Friday morning, Whispering Pines didn't feel like a peaceful suburban retreat. The news van from Channel 9 still circled the block twice a day. And Agent Lacey's EPA crew returned with heavier equipment, including one machine that beeped. Every time it scanned Karen's back fence. Travis stood at his window, arms crossed, as Duke growled low from the foot of the couch. It wasn't just the activity outside, it was the air. It felt, charged. Like the neighborhood was holding its breath. Then came the sound, a dull clang, followed by muffled shouting. He stepped onto his porch and saw Lacey crouched with 2 field agents beside the fence. Just yards from shed, they had unearthed something. Lacey turned and motioned him over. Take a look, she said flatly. Beneath the soil was a half-buried steel valve, bolted to a rusted outflow pipe that ran from beneath the shed and under the rear property fence. The pipe ended in a makeshift drainage grate buried behind a hedge just inside Travis's lot. It was disguised beneath decorative stones and leaves. Someone went through a lot of trouble to hide this, Lacey muttered. One agent lifted a barrel cap from nearby, soaked in sticky black residue. Same composition as the runoff found in your soil. Exact match. Travis knelt beside it. You're saying this whole system was set up to drain the barrels straight into my yard? Lacey nodded grimly. Not just your yard. It's been running toward the public storm drain. You just happen to be the closest property line. The perfect fall guy. Across the lawn, Karen's blinds twitched. And there's more, Lacey added. Back at the mobile testing station, she showed Travis digital images of a logbook, handwritten entries from the shed's clipboard. Karen's name appeared 7 times. Rick Dalton's name 4. One of those dates? The night Travis's truck got towed. She coordinated the dump the same night your vehicle was taken, Lacey said. That's not a coincidence. Travis looked over at Karen's house. Every window was shut tight, her porch abandoned. I've got one of the EPA lawyers reviewing the shed as a known site of illegal disposal, Lacey added, which means it's not just the HOA on the hook anymore, it's her, personally. Later that day, HOA members gathered near the mailboxes after a flyer went out calling for an emergency board meeting. Karen arrived with a stack of paper and a forced smile, flanked by a thin man in a wrinkled blazer, clearly her attorney. I know tensions are high, Karen began, and I want to remind everyone that none of the recent developments reflect the values of this community. From the back of the crowd, someone shouted, we saw the barrels? Karen. Another voice followed. You dumped oil near my kid's place. Karen raised her voice, lips tight. I've always acted in the best interest of Whispering Pines. Rick was assisting the HOA with storage and towing arrangements that triggered groans. Mrs. Gutierrez stood up, tablet in hand. Your arrangement poisoned 3 lawns, killed a dozen shrubs, and nearly got the HOA fined into bankruptcy, Karen snapped. You people don't understand how much work I've done, how much I've sacrificed. That's when Agent Lacey stepped forward. This meeting is over, she said calmly. As of today, Karen Millstone is being named in an official EPA complaint. The barrels, the drain line, the unauthorized dumping, all of it was directed through a structure under her access and oversight. The fines are preliminary, but they're real, and they're rising. Karen's attorney tried to interrupt, but Lacey didn't stop. Anyone complicit in the setup will be identified. And yes, Mr. Rick Dalton is being investigated as a business entity involved in improper waste transport. Anyone who authorized or facilitated those actions is now under scrutiny. Karen tried to speak, but her voice cracked. Her gaze darted from neighbor to neighbor. No one defended her. Not this time. She dropped the stack of flyers, turned on her heel, and stormed back toward her house. That night, Travis got a knock at his door. It wasn't the EPA. It was Mrs. Gutierrez, holding a jump drive. I backed up everything, she said, in case Karen tries to disappear. Footage, audio, even screenshots of her texts. She used the HOA app. Amateur move. Travis accepted it, surprised but grateful. I don't like bullies, she said simply. The drive clicked into Travis's laptop. One folder stood out, labeled Corin Trush Day. Inside, a clear video of Rick Dalton rolling barrels into the shed with Karen holding the door open. Karen Millstone wasn't used to losing control. For years, she ruled Whispering Pines like a well-organized checklist. Violations, processed yards, monitored, power, absolute. But after the sweep, her kingdom cracked. Now, every open window and whispered conversation seemed to echo with one word, oil. Still, Karen wasn't ready to step down, not without a fight. She called an emergency HOA meeting, demanded it be held at the clubhouse, and packed the room, with printed copies of bylaws, carefully highlighted pages, and a speech rehearsed to the syllable. I have always acted in this community's best interest, she began, voice firm, but shaking beneath the surface, and I will not stand for false accusations or mob-style blame. Travis sat at the back, arms folded. Mrs. Gutierrez was beside him, tablet ready. Duke waited outside the double doors, leashed to the bike rack, and occasionally letting out a low huff. Karen continued, pacing dramatically in front of the folding chairs. Yes, barrels were found. Yes, some soil was affected. But let me remind you that shed is HOA property, which means liability doesn't fall on one individual, it falls on all of us. Gasps. A few residents sat straighter. Others narrowed their eyes. You're saying we're responsible? Someone asked. Karen nodded tightly. Unless we all come together and stop this finger-pointing, the EPA fines could hit the association as a whole. That's when Rick Dalton walked in. Every head turned. He wore a grease-stained hoodie, jeans, and it looked like he'd slept in his truck. Probably because he had. Karen's eyes widened. Rick, what are you? He cut her off with a smirk. Thought I'd stop by, see how my name was doing in all your little speeches. Karen's voice dropped. You need to leave. This is an HOA only. But Rick raised his phone. Nah, you want to talk about shared blame, right? Well, let's go ahead and share it. He tapped the screen. Audio played through a small Bluetooth speaker. Karen's voice, clear as day. Just dump it behind McCall's yard. He's too new to know the difference. And if the EPA comes knocking, I'll call it community landscaping. It's all HOA land anyway. Dead silence. Rick raised an eyebrow. You asked me for help, said it was temporary. Said the HOA wouldn't notice. Karen turned pale. You recorded me. Rick shrugged. Learned the hard way with you. Always cover your back. Mrs. Gutierrez raised her hand. I motioned to remove Karen Millstone from the board, effective immediately. Someone else called out. Seconded. A vote was taken. It wasn't close. Karen tried to shout over them, but the voices rose above hers. She stormed out of the room, cheeks burning, as someone snapped a photo of her med exit. The next day, that photo made the front page of the local newspaper. The headline, HOA president under fire for toxic dumping scheme, blame game turns personal by Monday morning. Karen's mailbox overflowed with certified letters. Her personal liability was no longer theoretical. The EPA confirmed the fine, $300,000. Personal, not shared. Cleanup crews began arriving, digging up soil, replacing grass, and rerouting drainage. The HOA board issued a public apology. A new president was appointed, a mild-mannered librarian named Cecil, who promised fewer inspections and more community POTLUCKS. Travis watched it all unfold from his porch, sipping coffee while Duke chewed on a rope toy. Agent Lacey called him that afternoon. She's not taking it well, she said. Tried filing an injunction against the EPA. It was denied. She's now under investigation for falsifying HOA records and aiding an unlicensed waste transporter. She's still blaming me. Travis asked. She's blaming everyone. Lacey replied, including the squirrel population. That night, Mrs. Gutierrez brought over homemade empanadas, freedom food, she called them. No more surprise violation notes in my tulips. They laughed, but the mood stayed sober. She's not done, Mrs. Gutierrez warned quietly. Not the type she'll come back swinging. And sure enough, the next morning, Karen's house had a new sign in the yard. Coming soon, civil suit against Travis McCall for harassment and defamation. Travis stared at it from his lawn. Duke looked up and let out a long, slow growl. The morning Travis McCall got the court summons, Duke was snoozing in the sun like nothing had changed. But Travis knew better. Karen Millstone wasn't done, not by a long shot. Her lawsuit claimed harassment, defamation, and intentional disruption of HOA order. She demanded damages and a public apology. Travis read the papers twice before laughing. If she thought she could scare him off, she had another thing coming. He spent the next few days preparing. That meant gathering every piece of evidence he had. The security footage from his cameras and Mrs. Gutierrez's porch, the audio recording of Karen's own words, EPA reports confirming illegal dumping, and the attached fines witness statements from neighbors who'd had similar run-ins when the courtroom doors finally opened. Karen showed up looking like she was ready to bite someone's head off. Her lawyer was flustered, flipping nervously through thick folders. Travis.com and collected, sat beside his attorney. Duke, surprisingly, stayed quiet under the bench. The judge was patient but firm. Ms. Millstone, your complaint alleges defamation. Please present your evidence. Karen's lawyer started with emails and letters, trying to paint Travis as a troublemaker. But when it was Travis's turn, his attorney laid out the timeline meticulously. Your Honor, Mr. McCall moved into Whispering Pines 3 months ago. Within days, HOA President Ms. Millstone issued multiple violation notices against him, seemingly as retaliation for Mr. McCall questioning the HOA's towing practices. The defense attorney clicked a remote. A video played, clear footage of Karen inspecting barrels behind her shed, discussing oil dumping with Rick Dalton, and later, ordering the toxic waste be hidden in Travis's yard. Karen shifted in her seat. Next, the attorney played the recording of Karen instructing Rick to dump oil behind McCall's yard, and to blame the community. Karen's face drained of color. The judge raised a hand. This recording is damning. More videos followed. Mrs. Gutierrez's footage of Karen sneaking barrels into the shed at night. EPA documents detailing the environmental impact and the cost of the cleanup. Karen tried to object, but the judge silenced her with a sharp look. Ms. Millstone, the court finds your claims without merit. Furthermore, your actions have caused considerable damage, both environmental and reputational. Karen's lawyer whispered something urgently. The judge continued, I am dismissing this suit and ordering Ms. Millstone to cover Mr. McCall's legal fees. Karen's jaw clenched. She shot Travis a glare that could have frozen steel. Then, the unexpected. The judge leaned forward. Additionally, I am referring Ms. Millstone's case to the district attorney for investigation of potential criminal negligence regarding the oil dumping. Gasps filled the courtroom. Karen's lawyer sputtered, but the gavel came down. Court adjourned. Outside, Travis was met by reporters, neighbors, and Mrs. Gutierrez, all cheering quietly. Lacey Rhodes approached, a rare smile breaking her usually stern face. Looks like justice isn't just a word in Whispering Pines. Travis smiled back. Duke and I couldn't have done it without the community. Duke barked once, tail wagging. The story made the local news. Karen's downfall was complete, at least in the public eye. But as Travis walked home that evening, he spotted something new taped to his mailbox. A hastily written note. This isn't over. Watch your back. Travis folded it carefully. It then looked down at Duke. We're ready, buddy. Whatever comes next. The weeks after the court victory passed with a tense calm, Travis McCall tried to settle back into a peaceful routine, but the note taped to his mailbox haunted him. This isn't over. Watch your back. He doubled down on security extra cameras, motion lights, and Duke got a new, louder bark. Still, one late afternoon, a knock came at his door. Travis opened it to find a middle-aged woman holding a faded manila envelope. She introduced herself as Elise Harper, a former HOA member and whistleblower who'd moved away years ago. I couldn't stand watching what Karen was doing to this neighborhood, Elise said, handing him the envelope. I kept these records in case anyone ever needed proof. Inside was a trove of documents, financial records, emails, and photographs that revealed an even darker secret. Karen and Rick Dalton had been running an illegal waste disposal ring for years, dumping toxic waste not only on Whispering Pines properties, but in other communities nearby. Karen's scheme wasn't just about power. It was a criminal enterprise. Travis's jaw dropped as he flipped through the evidence. The next day, Agent Lacey Rhodes returned, accompanied by federal agents. We got a tip-off, she explained. Thanks to this, the EPA and FBI launched a full-scale investigation. Karen's house was searched, and Rick Dalton's tow company was shut down indefinitely. Karen was arrested on multiple federal charges. Word spread fast. The local news covered every detail. Whispering Pines slowly returned to normal, but the scars remained at the neighborhood potluck that weekend. Travis raised a glass. To community, he said, and to never letting a few bad apples ruin the whole orchard. Mrs. Gutierrez smiled, raising her own glass. And 2 dogs who keep us safe. Duke wagged his tail, happily accepting a treat. Just as the sun set, Travis's phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. You did good. Whispering Pines owes you. Travis smiled and looked at Duke. We're home, buddy.